As the stomping grew louder, an even larger figure emerged from the other side of the flying brain tornado, a shape looming 15 feet tall in the dim, flickering green light. Like a pressure cooker bitch or whatever it was. It had a largely metallic appearance, even though at the same time it was strangely organic. Its spiny, nearly skeletal body didn't seem that it would have a heavy enough to rattle through the door so violently, so long that the bony feet terminating in thin, sword-like talons. Most of its weight was likely concentrated by its head, immediately recognizable from the shape of a sausage grinder, slowly wavering each laborious step. A pair of slimy eyeballs, like Burgrr Man's, stared down at me from one of the other side of its huge contraption, and where it had been handled was only a black skeletal arm, ending with each side of those white cartoon gloves. Its worst characteristic by far was the way it breathed, a hollow metallic wheeze of increasing speed intensively, the panting of some starving dog who just got caught off a whiff of fresh roadkill. It stepped effortlessly into a catwalk to another, like a spider scrambling in slow motion along the strands of its web, and even drew closer. Something unimaginably worse than was about to happen. The meat. All the meat had just slaughtered for at least its second time. Its beginning move was more. As one, the mutilated horrors around me began to writhe, stumble, and drag themselves towards the grinder-headed giant, whose single arm just shot out of that moment of one groping, rolling pile of giblets came out from its impressive reach. It lifted the shining, sticky mess up with the filth, caked in funnel on top of the grinder head, and dropped it straight thin. It continued to stomp its way through my general direction, scooping up more monsters and dumping them onto its upper office until they were nearly spilling over the sides, churning the bathtub full of flesh and innards. The thing was that it was so slow, but I ran as fast as I could from the end of the spider's web to the next. I found every possible exit sealed tight, but by now, the meat rising from below had almost reached my level, and there was no way out. There was nothing to fight. I could only keep running. I turned to look back at the grinder, being still and ponderously, but intensively pursuing me in the right line. I was forced to zigzag. It snatched up the last strangling monster, some sort of spider-legged and white pod, resembling nothing I really recognized. It dumped it with the rest. Without slowing down, the monster clenched its now blood-soaked glove and began spinning its arm around like its socket, around and around like a ratchet-like noise, and the collected mutants churning and twisting as they sucked deeper into the grinder. I continued to go on running, but it only made a few more yards before a sickening falchion sputtering sound effect through the chamber, and something thick, warm, and wet slammed hard onto my back. The catwalk dropped as I was swung through the air, brought to the face grinder man's unblinking gaze. I was being held tight in by the enormous, bulky pink hand, wavering at the end of the angular limb, comprised by entirely raw, ground beef. It had been formed into a limb from every walking nightmare I had spent the last of my energy putting down, and flung it like a lizard's tongue, and pinpointed with accuracy, instantly subduing me from a good 20 meters away. I squirmed and thrashed desperately, but only felt further merled in dense, tarry muck. The crank arm continued to twist, and more squirmingly noodles it proceeds to tissue and sliver along with its makeshift appendage, cocooning me in the more layers of raw meat. I was reminded yet again of that giant spider. As I sunk deeper into the stinking, sloppy Muria, I suddenly found myself transfixated on what directly behind that metallic egg giant. I could finally see the tower, into the vortex. Down where those wrenched alien brain hatchers were all going in such a hurry. At first, I was only confused. The significance of what I was seeing almost didn't want me to register. Bitter, rancid meat juices began to flood my mouth. Tendrils of beef sludge were prohibiting my eyes and nose. My world was going black. I was being smothered to death. But inside, I just couldn't help but stop laughing. I awoke the following morning onto the floor of my own home, alive. My body was caked in meat gunk, and my clothes were sticky with blood. Not a dream. What little must have I been in my stomach promptly emptied itself onto the carpet. I guess I'm tearing up those soon, if it wasn't my real point. I staggered into the shower, my mind racing with all I've seen in a meat factory. They had apparently neither wished to kill me nor erase my memories. I guess they knew, as well as I did, there was nothing that I could do to them. After all, if cattle wouldn't do much to change their fate, what hope could I ever have for that little cattle feed? I tried to get a Fort Fountain Coke at 7-Eleven, for some pinkish skunk coiled out of me like soft serve smelling like hot bologna. I cut open what seemed to be the watermelon. Inside of it there was a lot like a brain. I unwrapped it with almost joy, but got nothing length of bone, filled with a yellow, clear mush. I put the money back into the Coke machine. I saw the bottle tumble into the bottom. I reached through the door, and as I pulled out a heart, still beating, it hurled onto the pavement and stomped it into nothing but a red, sticky stain. As I came home starving, not even surprised at a flock of chickens hobbling around my front lawn, plucked and headless, I staggered into my kitchen and cracked into another box of cereal from my dwindling stash. Cat food, and food stink. Cartoon hamburger. The words "superior food matter" had replaced with frosted flakes. Tony the tiger was grainy at the photograph of a bobcat. A box of Lucky Charms said, "Add the tissue rind," above the shitty JPEG stock art of nobody bunny leprechaun. The Cheerios had become organ parts and add fluids, and the rest of the box was dominated by a close-up calmly image of gray intestines. As I rummaged through the whole cubby in daze, blood, red materials, marvelous food nugget, none of them was there. I bought it. I didn't bring anything home with a single letter out of whack. The last box tasted to be Cocoa Puffs, my favorite. Fred Flintstone was still looking like Fred Flintstone, just far too real. But I could see that there was a pore on his lifelike, fleshy nose. It was now apparently a box of flavored meal substance. Whatever. What the hell ever. I ate it. And it was so damn delicious. So was a mysterious can of your sick flavor meat pasties waiting for me at the coffee table. So was that cup what I looked, smelled, and it tasted like liquid bacon, straight out from my own tap. The black thing in the refrigerator was sweet as maple ham, even if it looked like that bastard child of a caterpillar and a starfish. The best thing by far was the steak, the huge red juicy steak, ready for me in the seat of my car. It wasn't even the flavor that made it so good. It was the screamin'. And that, my little pretties, was Burgrr Entries, a creepypasta written by Jonathan Wojcik. Yeah, this is a pretty good creepypasta. I don't know why it says credit to Bog Leach or something. I don't even know if it said it was written by him, but It's written by Jonathan Wojcik, which I'm gonna be putting that's who the original author of the story is. Now, it's originally from Burgrr.com. So, let's get on with this story. For one, I definitely have to say it's a really good, well-made creepypasta that is written in a diary format. Like, I mean, usually diary formats don't really work with creepypastas, but for some reason, this one actually manages to do a pretty good job. Like, with the whole concept and basically what was going on in this story. Now, I definitely would have to say it's a really good creepypasta for what this one really is. Now, take it for granted, I have never read this story until just recently because, well, I decided to look for some good creepypastas, and this one, I have to say, was actually a really well made creepypasta. Like, especially with the whole time and effort into the story. I mean, I've seen Shadow Reader actually narrated this one, and I gotta be honest, this story was honestly well made in detail. I mean, I like the good grammar of this story as well as the sentence structuring, the storyline. Everything about it was just flat out amazing. Like, I mean, I really enjoyed this story. Whatever I could say, it's a long story, but holy hell, this story was really well made. I'm not denying when I say this. This story was flat out amazing. I do like the good grammar and how beautifully this story was well written. So I definitely have to say to the author, awesome job with this story. This was awesome. I really enjoyed narrating this story. This was awesome to read. And I really hope that this author who wrote this story has written some other good creepypastas like this because this story was honestly really well made in detail. I mean, it's not easy to make a good creepypasta in a diary format like this one. This one honestly was well made in detail. It's pretty good to be honest. So, I definitely have to say it's definitely worth it if you want to find some good stories. This story, I recommend you give it a read. So, that I have to say is a very good positive with this story. So, I guess with that being said, and with that being the case, like I'm going to say right now, this is just simply my own personal opinion. And if you happen to disagree with me, that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions in regards to these creepypastas, and this is simply my own personal thoughts. My final rating of this story would have to be I'm gonna give this one a 10 out of 10. It's a really good, enjoyable creepypasta. There's definitely a lot of time and effort, and I'm gonna have to say this story actually did really good for what this is. So this story, I have to say, I recommend you guys give it a read if you haven't. I recommend you go ahead and give it a read. It's a very great story. You will never well, you will never be disappointed once you read this story. And it's on the regular Creepypasta Wiki too. So, anyways, with that being said, and with that being the case, what did you guys think about this creepypasta? Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Also, what you have done personally to help make this story a lot better? Feel free to leave me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. And if you happen to be brand new here on this channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell to when I upload so that way you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, please roll the outro because I'm out.